The young pianist sat in her small, cozy room, her fingers lightly brushing the keys of the old piano her parents had bought years ago. She had always loved music, but she was shy and quiet, preferring the company of melodies to the chatter of people. Today, like every other day, she practiced alone, the sunlight streaming through the window, making the keys shine in patches of gold. She played slowly at first, her fingers moving carefully, testing each note, feeling the vibration of the piano under her hands. It was a simple song she had learned recently. Nothing complicated, but she poured her heart into every note, imagining an audience that might one day hear her play. Suddenly her phone buzzed on the wooden desk beside her. Startling her, she paused and wiped her hands on her skirt before picking it up. Seeing a message from the local music hall. "We would like you to perform at our upcoming recital. Please come and play your piece." The words made her stomach twist with excitement and nervousness. She had performed a few times at small school events, but this was different. This was a hall where professional musicians played, where people came to watch and listen carefully. Not to clap politely, her mind raced. Do they really want me? Can I do this? It's just a simple song, who would care? Her parents noticed her quiet excitement, entering the room with warm smiles. "It's a big opportunity," her mother said, gently brushing her hair behind her ear. "You've practiced so much and your music touches people. Don't doubt yourself." Her father nodded, holding out a cup of tea. "Just go, enjoy the music, and be yourself. That's all anyone can ask." She smiled faintly, appreciating their encouragement. But the doubt still lingered like a shadow in the corner of her mind. Could she really make a simple song sound special in front of strangers? For the rest of the afternoon, she practiced, playing the song over and over, each time she pressed the keys. She imagined the sound filling the grand hall, bouncing off the walls, reaching people's hearts. The idea both thrilled and scared her. She tried closing her eyes, imagining the audience smiling, some tapping their feet to the rhythm, some leaning forward, completely absorbed in the music. She could almost feel the warmth of their attention, but the reality made her nervous again. What if they didn't like it? What if her hands trembled at the wrong moment? Evening came and the room grew quiet except for the soft notes of the piano. The sky outside turned golden and then pink, finally fading into a deep blue. She paused to look at the window, taking a deep breath, reminding herself of why she loved music, not for applause or recognition, but because it made her feel alive. Because when she played, nothing else mattered. Not the doubts, not the fear, not even the people watching, just her, the piano, and the song. The next day, she packed a small bag with her music sheet, a bottle of water, and a notebook where she sometimes scribbled thoughts about music. Her parents walked her to the car, giving her hugs that seemed to transfer a little of their confidence to her. The drive to the music hall was quiet, the city streets buzzing with life outside, but she felt a strange calm inside. She watched the buildings pass by, imagining herself stepping onto the stage, sitting in front of the massive piano, the lights shining down, and hearing the first notes echo through the hall. When they arrived, she stopped in front of the grand music hall, her eyes wide as she looked up at the tall glass doors and the polished stone steps. It was larger than she had imagined, and the thought of performing inside made her heart race. She took a deep breath, holding her parents' hands for a moment longer, and then walked inside, feeling the cool air and the quiet hum of activity as other performers moved around. Some were tuning their instruments, others whispered last-minute encouragements to each other. She felt small among them, but she reminded herself that she belonged here too, that her music had a place in this hall. No matter how simple the song might seem, backstage, the smell of polished wood and fresh flowers filled the air. The stage loomed ahead, the spotlight already shining down on the empty piano. She approached it slowly, her fingers brushing against the keys one last time in private, feeling the texture, the familiar smoothness under her touch. She closed her eyes, imagining the audience sitting in neat rows, all waiting, all watching. The thought made her chest tighten, but also sparked a thrill inside her. She realized that this was the moment she had been dreaming of, the moment every practice, every quiet hour alone had led to. A staff member came by and whispered, "You'll be performing a simple song. Just relax and play from your heart." The words were meant to reassure her, but she felt a strange mixture of pressure and excitement. It was a simple song, yes, but she now understood that it could become something extraordinary if she let herself feel the music fully. She took a deep breath, sat on the piano bench, and let her fingers hover over the keys. The hall was silent behind the curtain, waiting, and she could hear her own heartbeat. Steady but fast, ready to begin. Backstage, the young pianist looked around nervously, feeling the hum of activity all around her. Other performers hurried past, carrying instruments or tuning their violins. Some spoke quietly to each other, laughing nervously, while others sat alone, eyes closed. Imagining their performance, she felt small and unsure, wondering if she really belonged in this place filled with so much talent. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her music sheet, flipping it open and closed as if looking for courage. A staff member approached her, smiling warmly. "Don't worry. You only need to play a simple song, just enjoy it, and let your heart guide you." The words should have comforted her, but instead they made her mind spin even more. How could a simple song impress anyone here? With all these experienced musicians performing complex pieces, her stomach twisted with both excitement and anxiety, and she took a deep breath, trying to steady her shaking hands. She moved toward the stage, stepping carefully on the thick red carpet that led to the piano. The bright lights of the hall reflected off the polished wood, making the stage look bigger and more intimidating than she imagined. She paused for a moment behind the curtain, peeking through to see the audience slowly filling the seats. People were chatting quietly, some glancing at their programs, some whispering to friends, but all eyes would soon be on her. The thought made her heart beat faster, a mix of fear and excitement. She sat on the piano bench, adjusting it slightly, her fingers hovering above the keys. Feeling the cool smoothness under her fingertips, she closed her eyes for a moment, trying to calm herself, remembering all the hours she had spent practicing alone in her room, every note she had played, every mistake she had corrected, every tiny improvement she had made on that simple song. They had all led her to this moment, and now she had to trust herself. The announcer's voice echoed softly through the hall, calling her name. "Please welcome to the stage, our young pianist." The audience clapped politely, some turning their heads toward the stage. Curious about the performer, she swallowed hard, feeling the lump in her throat. Her knees were trembling, but she took a deep breath and reminded herself, this was just a simple song, something she had played countless times in her room. She could do this, she just had to believe. She looked at the sheet music in front of her, the notes seeming to dance on the page. At first, she imagined playing them exactly as written, careful and correct, but then a thought struck her. What if she let herself feel the music? Let her own emotions guide her fingers, not just playing the song, but telling a story with every note. She closed her eyes again, and her fingers touched the keys lightly, almost like a whisper. Feeling the piano respond to her touch around her, other performers finished their preparations, and the murmurs backstage faded as the hall focused on her. She could hear the faint rustle of programs and the soft shifting of chairs as the audience settled in. Her heart was racing, but she felt a strange calm too. The anxiety had not disappeared, but it had turned into energy, a nervous excitement that made her feel alive. She realized that she did not have to play perfectly. She only had to play with honesty and let the music flow naturally. A mentor appeared beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Remember, it's simple, it's your song. Play it for yourself first and everyone else will feel it too." His words were comforting, and she nodded, taking one last deep breath, opening her eyes to see the empty stage in front of her. Bathed in golden light, the hall was quiet, the audience waiting, and she felt that for the first time, she was ready to begin, not just with her fingers, but with her heart. As she positioned her hands above the keys, she could feel a spark of courage spreading through her. Her fingers hovered for a moment, and then slowly she pressed the first note, soft and careful, almost hesitant. But even in that tiny beginning, she felt the music responding to her, the hall absorbing the sound. The simple song she had practiced countless times now felt alive, growing and spreading, filling the room with a warmth she had never imagined. Backstage, the staff watched quietly, sensing something special about the performance. And as she continued, her confidence grew. Each note flowing more naturally, her fear began to fade, replaced by joy and connection with the music. She realized that this simple song was no longer just a practice piece. It was a chance to share a part of herself with everyone listening, to tell a story without words, and the thought made her smile inside. The young pianist took a deep breath and pressed the first note of her simple song. The sound was soft, delicate, almost like a whisper, but it filled the hall in a way that surprised her. She could feel the vibration of the keys through her fingers, and the warmth of the sound seemed to reach her heart. The audience remained silent, listening carefully, some leaning forward in their seats, unsure what to expect, but curious. She opened her eyes slightly and glanced at the rows of faces, seeing a mixture of anticipation, curiosity, and polite attentiveness, and it made her feel both nervous and inspired. As she continued, her fingers began to move more confidently, each note flowing smoothly into the next. The song was still simple, but there was something about the way she played it that made it feel alive. She imagined telling a story through the music, the highs and lows, the gentle pauses, and the soft whispers. And as she did, she felt her nerves melting away. Replacing them was a sense of connection, as if the hall itself were listening and responding to her. She noticed small movements in the audience. A woman in the front row had closed her eyes, her lips slightly parted, completely absorbed in the music. A young boy was tapping his fingers lightly on the armrest, keeping time with the melody, and an older man leaned forward, his hands clasped together, holding his breath as if he could not believe the emotion coming from such a simple song. The pianist felt a thrill, realizing that she was not just playing notes, she was reaching people, touching them in a way that made her heart swell with pride and joy. With each passing moment, she grew more confident, her fingers dancing lightly over the keys, adding small touches she had never tried before, subtle flourishes that made the song feel richer and more expressive. She realized that the music was no longer about performing for the audience. It was about feeling the song herself, letting her emotions guide her, and trusting that others would understand and feel it too. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It had become a voice for her thoughts and feelings, a bridge between her heart and the people watching. The hall seemed to hold its breath as she played, every note echoing against the walls and ceilings. The chandeliers above reflected tiny sparkles of light onto the polished floor, as if they were dancing to her music. The audience's silence was not empty. It was full, alive with attention, anticipation, and wonder. She could sense it, and it made her fingers move faster and lighter, the song growing naturally, effortlessly, as if the piano itself were helping her. The simple song had become something extraordinary in that moment, and she could feel the energy of the hall supporting her. She remembered her teacher's words from years ago, "Play with your heart, not just your hands," and she understood them now better than ever. It was not about perfect technique or complicated passages. It was about expression, feeling, and honesty. She let herself sway slightly with the melody, letting the music breathe through her, feeling each chord resonate with emotion. And she saw the audience respond, tiny smiles, nods, eyes glistening with admiration. It was a magical exchange, silent but powerful, between her and every person in the room. As the middle section of the song approached, she felt a surge of excitement, adding slight pauses and gentle crescendos that she had not planned. The audience leaned in, captivated by the subtle changes, the gentle flow of her interpretation. Her confidence soared, and she began to smile just slightly, feeling a quiet happiness that came from realizing that she could share a part of herself through this music. The simple song was no longer just notes on a page. It was her story, her emotion, her soul, reaching hundreds of people in the hall backstage. Some performers peeked at her from behind the curtain, quietly amazed at how a young girl could transform a simple melody into something so moving. They whispered to each other, astonished at the grace, emotion, and poise in her performance. And she, completely absorbed, did not notice them. Her entire being focused on the piano, on the song, and on the subtle magic she was creating in the hall. As the song neared its final section, the pianist felt a strange mix of exhilaration and sadness. She did not want the song to end because in these moments, she felt completely alive, completely herself. The music had become a part of her, and the audience had become part of it too. She played the last few notes softly, almost like a sigh, letting the sound linger in the air, echoing gently through the hall, and then paused, holding her hands above the keys for a moment, savoring the silence that followed. The hall remained quiet for a heartbeat longer, and she felt it, the electricity in the air, the collective awe of hundreds of people who had been touched by something simple, yet beautiful. She realized that even a small song, played with honesty, could create a powerful effect, and that thought filled her with pride, excitement, and a little disbelief. This was just the beginning, she thought, but in this moment, she had already shared something unforgettable, and the hall seemed to acknowledge it silently. As she continued playing, the young pianist began to feel something shift inside her. The simple song she had practiced so many times began to change, almost on its own. She added small touches she had never tried before, subtle changes in timing and dynamics, soft pauses, and gentle crescendos that made the melody breathe differently. At first she hesitated, worried that she might make a mistake. But then a wave of courage washed over her, and she realized the music was guiding her, leading her fingers in ways she could not have imagined. The hall seemed to respond instantly, as if it understood the transformation in the music. The audience, still quiet, leaned forward in their seats, captivated by the new depth and emotion in the melody. Eyes widened, some faces filled with surprise, others with admiration, and a few seemed almost moved to tears. She could feel it too, a connection forming between her and everyone listening. The simple song was no longer just a song, it was becoming an experience, a journey shared between the performer and the audience. Her fingers danced lightly across the keys, adding small flourishes, ornamenting the notes, each one carefully yet naturally. The music became richer, fuller yet delicate. Each chord and arpeggio carried emotion, telling a story that words could never express. She felt a rush of exhilaration as she realized she was creating something unique, something no one had expected from a simple song. The audience was completely absorbed, some holding their breath, not wanting to miss a single moment backstage. A few performers and staff had stopped what they were doing, peeking through the curtains in awe. Whispered words like incredible and amazing floated softly, but they did not disturb the magic unfolding on stage. She was unaware of them, fully absorbed in the music, letting her instincts and feelings guide her. The song, though simple at first, had transformed into a powerful, emotional performance, and she felt alive in a way she had never experienced before. Every note she played carried more confidence and expression than the last. The melody rose and fell gracefully, sometimes gentle, sometimes strong, like a conversation between her and the hall. She noticed small reactions in the audience, a tear glistening on a woman's cheek, a young boy smiling in awe, an elderly man closing his eyes, letting the music wash over him. Each reaction encouraged her, inspiring her to play even more freely, trusting the song and her own instincts. The music seemed to take on a life of its own, flowing naturally from her heart to her hands and then into the room. She no longer worried about mistakes or the simplicity of the song, because she realized it was not the song itself, but the feeling behind it. The hall, the audience, and even the stage seemed to recognize this. And in that moment she felt a powerful energy, a sense of purpose and connection unlike anything she had ever felt. As she approached the final section of the song, she added a few bold touches, playful notes that danced lightly, bringing joy and surprise to the melody. The audience leaned in, completely captivated, whispering to themselves softly, as if they could not believe the beauty coming from such a young performer. Her heart raced, but in a good way, a thrilling excitement that made her smile inwardly. She had never felt so confident, so free, so alive. Letting the music carry her beyond the confines of the notes on the page, the hall was filled with the sound of her music, each note echoing softly yet powerfully, bouncing off the walls and ceiling, creating a harmony that felt alive, warm, and magical. She looked out briefly at the audience, seeing faces filled with emotion, some with tears, some with awe, some smiling quietly in admiration. She realized that she had not just played a song, she had shared a part of herself, her heart and soul, with everyone in that room. The feeling was overwhelming, almost too much to hold, yet beautiful. As the final notes approached, she felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing she had given everything she could. She slowed her fingers slightly, letting the melody fade gently, almost like a sigh, holding the last note just a moment longer, savoring the silence that followed. The hall remained quiet for a heartbeat, as if the audience itself were absorbing the impact of what they had just witnessed. She felt a wave of emotion, a mix of pride, joy, and relief, knowing she had turned a simple song into something unforgettable. Backstage, the whispers grew louder, performers and staff exchanging astonished glances, amazed that a young pianist could create such depth and beauty. They watched her, silently acknowledging that what she had done was extraordinary. And yet she remained unaware, focused entirely on the music and the connection she had just shared with the audience. In that moment, she realized something important. That music, no matter how simple, could have a power far greater than she had ever imagined. As the young pianist continued, she felt a wave of emotion surge through her. The song she had begun as a simple melody was now alive with her feelings, every note carrying joy, longing, and a quiet strength. She could feel her heart racing with excitement, her fingers moving faster yet more gracefully than ever. The music seemed to flow through her as if it had a life of its own, guiding her hands, guiding her soul, and guiding the entire hall. The audience sat completely still, some leaning forward, eyes wide, absorbing every sound, every soft pause. Every delicate chord seemed to reach deep into their hearts. Some faces reflected surprise, others admiration, and a few glistened with quiet tears. The pianist felt this energy, this invisible thread connecting her to everyone in the room, and it made her fingers dance even more lightly over the keys, adding subtle variations and delicate flourishes. She could hear the resonance of the piano filling the hall, bouncing off the walls and ceiling, creating a harmony that felt almost alive. She swayed slightly with the music, letting her body move naturally to the rhythm, and in that movement she felt freedom, pure and exhilarating. It was no longer just a performance. It was a conversation with the audience, a story told without words, every note expressing something she could not say aloud. The middle section of the song became a wave of emotion, building slowly and gently, then rising with strength. Her fingers moved in confident arcs, each chord more expressive than the last. She felt herself becoming part of the music, and the music becoming part of her. The audience, sensing the shift, began leaning in even closer, completely absorbed, as if the entire hall held its breath to listen. A few audience members had tears running quietly down their cheeks, touched by the honesty and beauty of the performance. A woman near the front whispered softly to her companion, She is incredible." And a young boy stared wide-eyed, his small hands clenching in awe. Even the older members of the audience leaned forward, their expressions softening, moved by the emotion they could feel emanating from the piano. The young pianist, though unaware of these details, could sense the impact, and it gave her courage to play even more freely. The song began to rise toward its emotional peak, each note carrying more intensity, more feeling. She allowed herself to take risks, to stretch the melody slightly, letting it soar and fall in ways she had never tried before. The music became a living, breathing thing, speaking from her heart to every listener. She felt a connection so deep that it was almost overwhelming, a joy she had never experienced, the kind of feeling that made her forget everything else, even herself backstage. Staff and fellow performers could not help but watch in awe, their eyes reflecting astonishment and admiration at the young pianist's courage, her skill, and the emotional depth she brought to such a simple piece. They whispered to each other softly, "I have never seen anything like this." But the whispers did not distract her, for she was completely immersed in the music, feeling every note and every subtle change in the hall's atmosphere. She began adding gentle pauses and soft, lingering notes, letting the music breathe, letting the hall absorb each sound. The final sections of the song were approaching, and she felt both excitement and a little sadness, wishing the performance could last forever. The music had become a part of her, and in those moments, she knew it had become a part of everyone listening as well. Their hearts, their emotions were entwined with the melody, and it made her feel powerful yet tender. As she played the last few notes, she allowed herself to slow slightly, letting each note linger, and then fade gently like a soft sigh. The hall remained completely silent for a heartbeat, a moment of shared awe and reverence before the applause began, first slowly, then swelling into a thunderous, heartfelt ovation. The young pianist's eyes widened in surprise, her chest tightening with joy, pride, and disbelief. She had transformed a simple song into an emotional experience that had shaken the entire hall. Tears threatened to fall from her eyes as she realized the power of music, and the power she had within herself. She had shared something authentic, something true, and the audience had felt it deeply. Some clapped vigorously, others stood cheering, and many were simply smiling, their hearts full. The young pianist finally allowed herself to exhale, a deep trembling breath, feeling the warmth and love of the moment, knowing that this memory, this connection would stay with her forever. Backstage, the staff and fellow performers exchanged amazed glances, whispering praises, yet she remained focused, bowing gracefully, her fingers still lightly touching the keys, feeling grateful, humble, and full of joy at the way a simple song had become extraordinary. She realized that it was not just the music, but the emotion, the honesty, and the courage she had brought to it, that had moved every person in that hall, and for the first time, she truly believed in her own ability to touch hearts with her music. The final note lingered in the air, a soft, trembling sound that seemed to echo in every corner of the hall. For a heartbeat, there was complete silence, the kind of silence that felt heavy with awe. Then, slowly at first, the audience began to clap. Softly at first, as if testing the moment, and then, almost instantly, the sound grew louder, more enthusiastic, until the hall was filled with thunderous applause, cheers and clapping. The young pianist froze for a moment, unable to believe the reaction, her hand still hovering above the keys. Tears pricked her eyes as the standing ovation grew, and she realized that she had moved every person in that hall. The polite smiles she had imagined were gone, replaced by genuine astonishment, admiration, and respect. Some audience members stood clapping. Some cheered, some wiped away tears, and others simply smiled, captivated by what they had just witnessed. Her heart swelled with emotion, a mixture of pride, relief, and joy, knowing that her performance had touched so many. Critics and experienced musicians in the audience whispered to each other, their faces filled with surprise and excitement. "I have never seen such emotion in a simple song," one of them murmured, while another nodded. "Her talent is incredible. The depth, the expression, it's rare to see." The young pianist, still seated at the piano, could sense the awe. Even if she could not hear every word, the hall was buzzing with energy. A collective recognition of something extraordinary, something beyond expectations backstage. Performers peeked through the curtains, some gasping softly, others smiling in admiration. They watched the young girl transform a simple song into a performance that would stay in their memory forever. Even the staff members who had been there all evening whispered quietly, "She has a gift, a true gift," and for the first time, she felt that gift herself, the weight of it, and the joy of sharing it with the world. She slowly stood and bowed, her hands clasped together for balance. The audience continued clapping, some shouting her name, many on their feet. Applauding with full hearts, she lifted her eyes, scanning the room, seeing faces filled with emotion, and she realized that she had done more than play music. She had created a connection, a moment that would be remembered long after the hall emptied. Every cheer, every smile, every tear reflected the power of her honesty and courage. Her parents, standing at the back, were beaming with pride, tears in their eyes. They had always believed in her, but even they were astonished by the depth and impact of her performance. They watched as friends, family, and strangers alike celebrated her talent, and they knew that this moment would shape her future in ways they could only imagine. She felt their love and support, and it strengthened her even more, reminding her that she was not alone in this journey. As the applause slowly began to fade, people continued talking in low tones, replaying the moments they had just witnessed. Commentators and journalists whispered notes to each other, scribbling down impressions of the young pianist's emotional performance. The buzz in the room was electric, everyone sharing quietly how a simple song had become extraordinary, and how the young girl had transformed the hall with her talent and heart. She returned to the piano for a small bow, letting her hands rest gently on the keys, feeling the warmth of the instrument beneath her fingers. The music had ended, but the emotions lingered, still vibrating through the hall, through the audience, and within her. She could feel a sense of accomplishment unlike anything she had ever known, the knowledge that she had shared a piece of herself, and it had been received with love, admiration, and awe. The staff began guiding other performers onto the stage, but she remained for a moment longer, letting the feeling sink in. Breathing deeply, her heart still raced, but it was a good, happy racing, full of excitement and gratitude. She had faced her fear, embraced the unknown, and transformed a simple song into something powerful, beautiful, and unforgettable. The hall, still echoing with applause and whispers, seemed to honor her courage and artistry, recognizing that she had done something truly special. Even as she stepped away from the piano, she felt the energy of the audience following her. Each smile, each clap, each glance filled her with confidence, making her realize that this was just the beginning. Her music had the power to move people, to connect hearts, and to tell stories beyond words. And in that moment, she knew that every hour of practice, every quiet moment alone, every small note she had learned had prepared her for this very instant. The simple song had changed everything, and she would never forget the feeling of shaking the entire hall with her performance. After the applause finally settled, the young pianist slowly stood, her heart still racing with excitement and disbelief. She felt a warm, tingling sensation in her chest, the kind of feeling that comes when you know something extraordinary has happened. Backstage, staff and fellow performers approached her quietly, some smiling, some nodding in silent admiration, and a few even shook their heads in amazement as if to say, "We have never seen anything like this before." Her parents hurried toward her, their eyes shining with tears, and hugged her tightly. whispering words of pride and encouragement. "You were incredible. We knew you could do it," her mother said softly, while her father added, "You have touched everyone in that hall with your music, and we are so proud." The young pianist smiled shyly, overwhelmed by emotion, realizing that all the hard work, practice, and quiet hours alone had led to this moment. And it was more magical than she had ever imagined. A few music critics and teachers approached, introducing themselves politely, praising her performance and offering kind words. "Your interpretation was extraordinary," one said. "The emotion, the depth, the courage to let the song speak beyond the notes. It's rare to see at any age." Another complimented her touch, the subtle timing, and the way she had connected with the audience, making them feel every note. She listened quietly, cheeks flushed, absorbing the recognition, still feeling a mixture of pride and humility, realizing that her simple song had become something truly remarkable. The young pianist's friends from school had also come, quietly peeking through the backstage doors, some whispering to each other in awe. "Did you see that? She made a simple song sound like magic." Others nodded, smiling, realizing that they had been part of witnessing a rare moment, and they wanted to share their excitement with her once she stepped out. She could feel the energy of everyone around her, the way they admired her talent, but also respected the humility she carried with it. As she moved toward the side of the stage, a music teacher from the hall approached and offered some advice mixed with compliments. "You have immense potential, but more importantly, you have the heart of a true musician. Keep nurturing it, and one day you will inspire countless others." The young pianist nodded, absorbing the words carefully, realizing that this was not the end, but the beginning of a journey she had never expected. She felt a strange combination of excitement and responsibility, knowing that music had the power to touch lives, and now it was her responsibility to continue sharing it. The hall slowly began to empty, but many lingered for a moment, still discussing the performance, replaying the emotions and the beauty they had felt. Some lingered near the stage, trying to catch a glimpse of the young girl who had shaken their hearts with a simple song, and she, noticing their smiles and nods, felt a deep gratitude, realizing that even though the performance was over, the connection she had made would last far longer than the music itself. She sat quietly on the piano bench again, running her fingers lightly across the keys, feeling the familiar smoothness, and reflecting on what had just happened. The piano, which had been a companion in her quiet room for years, had now become a bridge to the world, a tool to express her feelings, to tell stories and to touch hearts. She closed her eyes, remembering every nervous moment, every doubt, every fear that had nearly stopped her, and realized that courage had led her through, transforming uncertainty into something beautiful. Her parents sat nearby, watching her with admiration and love, and she felt their pride radiating, reassuring her. She realized that their support had been as important as her own practice, that encouragement and love could lift someone higher than talent alone. The young pianist thought about the hours she had spent alone, practicing in her quiet room, and how those hours had prepared her for this very moment. She felt gratitude for every tiny step, every note learned, every moment of patience and perseverance. As the evening drew to a close, a few mentors invited her to join future music events, competitions, and recitals, praising her for the honesty and emotion she brought to the stage. She listened politely, heart fluttering with both excitement and nervousness, thinking about the journey ahead, and imagining how many more people she could reach with her music. She realized that this performance had opened doors, but it had also given her confidence, teaching her that even a simple song, played with sincerity and emotion, could have an extraordinary impact. Walking slowly toward the exit, the young pianist felt a sense of calm pride, mixed with wonder. She had faced her fears, shared her heart, and left a mark on everyone in the hall. She looked back once more, seeing the empty seats, the grand stage, and the piano that had been her voice. And she silently promised herself that she would continue to play, to grow, and to touch hearts wherever she went. In that quiet moment, she understood that music was more than notes. More than performance, it was connection, expression, and courage. After the hall emptied and the applause faded into memory, the young pianist walked slowly toward the exit, her heart still fluttering with excitement and joy. She carried a quiet pride, knowing she had done something extraordinary, transforming a simple song into an emotional experience that would remain with everyone who had listened. Her steps were light, almost floating, as if the music still lingered in her, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. Outside, The night air felt cool against her skin, and she took a deep, calming breath, letting the sounds of the city mingle with the music still playing in her mind. Her parents walked beside her, smiling proudly, holding her hands for support. Their pride was evident in every glance, every word of encouragement, and she felt a surge of gratitude for their love and belief in her. They had been her strongest supporters, quietly cheering for her even when she doubted herself. And now they could share in her triumph. News of her performance began to spread quickly, both among attendees and through social media. Photos and videos captured the wonder of the hall and the expressions of the audience. Many shared the story of a young girl who had taken a simple song and turned it into something magical. The young pianist felt a mix of excitement and nervousness, realizing that her performance was reaching far beyond the hall, beyond her expectations, and touching people she would never meet. The next day, invitations began arriving from music schools, teachers, and competitions, praising her talent and inviting her to perform again. Some offered scholarships, others wanted to mentor her, and all seemed eager to see how far her gift could go. She read each message with a sense of awe, realizing that her courage and honesty had opened doors she had never imagined. It was overwhelming but also inspiring, teaching her that talent combined with heart could create extraordinary opportunities. She began receiving letters and messages from strangers, expressing how the music had touched them. Some described tears, some described smiles, and others spoke of a feeling they could not put into words. The young pianist felt a deep connection with these people, realizing that music could cross boundaries, connect hearts, and communicate emotions that words could never express. She understood for the first time that her gift was not just for herself, but for everyone who could hear it, and that thought filled her with purpose. In school, her friends treated her differently, not out of jealousy, but with admiration and respect. They asked her about the performance, about how she had felt, and about the courage it took to play on such a big stage. The young pianist smiled and explained simply that she had trusted her heart, that she had played honestly, and that the music itself had guided her. Her words were humble yet powerful, showing that anyone could achieve something extraordinary if they believed in themselves and trusted their instincts. Her teachers were equally impressed, praising her dedication, her expression, and her bravery. One music teacher said, "This is only the beginning. Your journey has just started and the world will watch you grow." Another offered guidance, encouraging her to explore more complex pieces, more challenging performances, and to continue sharing her heart through music. She listened attentively, realizing that while this performance had been extraordinary, it was also a stepping stone to even greater achievements, and she felt ready for the challenge. The young pianist spent time reflecting on the journey that had brought her here, remembering the quiet hours of practice, the moments of doubt, and the courage it took to sit in front of the piano that night. She understood that every small effort, every mistake, every hour of dedication had prepared her for this moment. And now she was more confident than ever, knowing that talent combined with perseverance, courage, and heart could create unforgettable experiences. As weeks passed, she performed at more venues, gradually gaining recognition not just locally but regionally. Her audience grew, but she remained the same humble girl who played with honesty and emotion, never forgetting the simple song that had changed her life. Each performance carried a bit of that first night, a bit of that magic that had connected her to the audience, and she realized that her music could inspire, comfort, and uplift people in ways she had never imagined. One evening after a small recital, she sat quietly at the piano alone, letting her fingers brush the keys softly. Feeling the music resonate through her once more, she smiled, remembering the first time she had played that simple song and how it had grown into something unforgettable. She understood that her gift was not just talent, but the ability to share emotions, to connect hearts, and to inspire courage and hope through music. Looking ahead, she dreamed of larger stages, more people to reach, and the endless possibilities of music. Yet she also knew that the most important part was honesty, heart and emotion, not fame or recognition. That simple song had taught her the power of feeling, and the value of sharing that feeling with the world. She left the hall that night with a quiet confidence, ready for whatever came next, knowing her music would always speak, touch, and inspire.